Introducing X-Credit LP staking from industry-leading RWA loan collateralization platform Credifi. Earn 10% cashback in USDT after 90 days, with more rewards coming soon for X-Credit holders. Visit V2.
Good evening, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from Dubai. So going a little bit later with our stream today. A big shout out to everybody that's tuning into this live and for everybody that's also watching it on catch up. You might have to bear with me here. I don't have my usual setup over here at the moment. Obviously, flown out here with the legend himself, Crypto Burb, and we are looking forward to Binance Blockchain Week. So without messing around, we're going to get into a slightly shorter live show today, try and keep it compressed. I know I say that every week and it normally runs over, but we're really going to do a good job. ZX Robin, Erica, Miguel, and Ben Gundal Kwan. Great to see you on here, my friend. Long time supporter and an absolute legend for the retweet. So brilliant to see you on here. How are we all doing? Dora as well, our lovely Dora. Brilliant to see you all. Guys, I'm going to have less access to the chat because I've only got one screen on me at the moment. So I'm going to really go deep into the content. If we get time, I will take a look at a few alts as well. So do let me know if there's anything that particularly catches your fancy and we will make time to look it over. So without further ado, let's jump into the charts because for me, this was just super duper clean. Let's just go to the weekly quickly. Excuse me. And I'll show you what I was thinking about here. So we can see here the black line OBW is order block weekly. Now, whenever we see these down close candles closed above, especially with what I call a strong close, okay, that's where you want to see a big bodied candle, ideally something engulfing, a little bit like we had over here. Then you're looking for this area in an ideal world to be retested. Now, obviously, as we slip down onto the lower time frames, then you can see that these moves can take a little while to play out. And that's very much the nature of the markets, okay? The nature of the markets exist there to almost get people frustrated. You know, you think these things are going to pump. You see that kind of initial pump like we got here. Then price drops back. People start to get bearish. People start to get short. And ultimately, you know, lose a little bit of context from that higher time frame. So what was so important about this? Well, a couple of things, really. Underneath, you'll see that we've got this purple box. Now, those of you that are familiar with the show or with my work for the last kind of 4 or 5 years will know that I'm a big fan of inversion gaps. So for me, when we're looking at a bullish gap, so this is a good example of one over here. We're looking for this inefficiency here for price to come into it, you know, basically prove that the buyers are still there at this point and then push on up. You close below these, then quite simply what we do is we then look for the next clear and obvious liquidity, and then price very, very often runs down to that. We once again, then we can see here, we have another inversion gap here. Move that one purple as well. And you can see it's just a classic kind of support and resistance or resistance to support flip. These areas are supposed to contain price and move them lower, then you don't want to see them violated. Same way with this one, that's supposed to contain price and move it higher. Again, that's strong close. Look at the bodies on these candles, right? They tell you that the impetus is with the bulls in this case and is with the bears in this case. So this move for me did two really important things, right? It got us above here. It set this, which is the same, just a little bit higher, is the daily order block from this big down move here. And obviously, like we saw on the weekly as well, this was a key area for support. So this is where we should be looking for longs. Now, most people retail, and that's not a derogatory term. I'm retail. I would imagine everybody watching this show is retail as well. When we're talking about non-retail, you're talking about big institutional players, right? Banks, hedge funds, etc. So what most people do, and most retail do, is they get long very late and they get short very late, okay? So both these areas represent great places to counter that trade, find that liquidity and reverse the market. So where does that leave us now? If we drop ourselves down onto a 4 hour, and let me just turn the session breaks off quickly here. quite simply, we're just looking for the same principles here, all right? So we've come back down, had this big move down. Then we set this down close candle here. Now that is in the range of these 3 down close candles as well, but we've had this corrective move higher. So what I'm looking for here is for this area to hold. So we're going to draw that in as our order block 4 hour. That's the OBH4 that you can see. And let me just zoom in a little bit for you. So we have this down close candle right now. Price rejects here. This is a little slither of a close, not really clean enough for me to get involved. But this beautiful pin bar candle here, or hammer candle, look at the big bullish body on that, and then the tail wick down, was a really good indication that the buyers had really stepped in here and price was getting ready to move. Then we had this large expansion. We created this breakaway gap here. Ultimately, price then just keeps respecting these until it doesn't, right? So we can see here again, we have another 4 hours. So when we close above that here, this is the place to step in and look for buyers. Now, the safest thing to do, or certainly how I look at it, is I'm just then looking to trade that to the next key liquidity pool, reassess when we get here. So if we've been long from say in here, you know where you're wrong below here. You've run it up to here, so you can take some profit, you can mitigate your risk, and therefore you get yourself in a better position of securing profit. So we can see that we've got this rejection here. I think that's absolutely normal. We do also need to realize that on 4 hour scale, we've had this 4 hour order block over here that's been doing a great job of capping price. We get the close below, resistance. What have we got now? We've got close above this area. Now we're within the range of this order block. I really want to kind of see this area hold. The caveat to this is that we do have this nice gap that's emerged below us. So what would be a really nice move would be, again, people kind of a little bit pessimistic on this, expecting a deeper correction, or for price to reverse here, getting into their short positions. As we move a little bit lower, people focusing too heavily on the low time frames, for us to wick down into this, maybe not on this candle, right? 22 minutes left. Maybe on the next candle, the one after that, for price to just range around a little bit, get people, kind of taking both sides. Then you get that flush. Now, remember with these candles, the same as this one, this was a huge, expensive, bullish candle, right? What do I mean by that? Well, until it retraced, we just had this big bullish body here. Now, it did retrace, and that's why it's important that we wait for the close. So now we're watching this area here, which is around 68,515. And then we want to look at the gap down here, which is starts about 68,230. Okay. Now I'm going to take a little look at the hourly, and then we'll also take a look at the 15 minutes for any of you intraday traders down there as well. Now we can see this huge expansion. What happened this morning during London is we took liquidity resting below Asia's range. Okay, so this is Asia's trading session. You often see these marked by the red box. Big shout out to our Bird Nest member and wonderful trader, GOT, who made this indicator for us. All right, now these red boxes represent Asia's range, and we're looking at these as key liquidity pools. Price came down, took that out this morning just before London, and then when the markets opened here, we set another beautiful pin bar candle here, and price ran really hot. So what do we want to look for now? Well, we want to look for overlaid confluence aligned with our high time frame. Okay, so like we said, we've got the high time frame gap here. So we think, okay, if price is going to drill down into this, as we can see, the big line across here is that other order block that we're looking at, which is kind of also, as we see here, a support and resistance level. Resistance on the hourly, you can see it here. What do we do? Closed above it, beautiful retest, and price pushed up. So if we're looking for some confluence within here, well, we have this order block here, which is on the hourly. So let's label that up. But actually, we've got this one down here as well that was never retested. And I tell you why I really like this one. Again, not saying that we're going to get it, but if we do, I'm going to be super interested in this. It's overlaid with a higher time frame gap. It was a big down move here, this big consolidation, or this move lower, tested into this order block, and then we had this big expansion. If the buyers were here before, we want to see if they're here again, if we get down to it. Okay, so just one last quick view here. If we want to be super aggressive with this, we think we're getting the reversal here. Well, there's a couple of things that we can do. All right, we can sit in here and we can wait for the order block, right, on the 15-minute. So wait for price to close above this. That will give us an indication that the strength is back there and we're looking to move higher. What I really like about this move at the moment on the 15-minute is that we can see we've reacted at this 15-minute bullish gap. So price broke away, tested, just dipped into that a little bit and got this strong move. So are we seeing that again here? We've also taken out this gap low, or an intermediate term low, which is a low resting within a fair value gap. And that provides a really good liquidity pool. The other thing that I'll be looking for here is for this gap. If price is going to continue lower and we do get this move higher from here, which it looks like we're going to get, if this gap's going to do its job, then it should ultimately reject price lower. However, what we're looking for here, or certainly what the bulls are looking for here, price have a strong close above this. And that can be our early stage signal that price is getting ready to move. So bear with me a couple of moments, guys. Let me just check on in the chat as well, see what we've got here. Ricky, hello, mate. Great to see you. ZX Robin, Soul, yeah, absolutely. Oh, Craig Parker, how are you doing, my friend? Back in between work travels. Awesome. Yeah, traveling myself at the moment, which, you know, is a massive blessing. Obviously, love it here in Dubai, by the way. If you haven't been, you do get the chance to come here. Really kind, beautiful people, and just, you know, a magnificent city and place if you get the opportunity. So, what happened to the time? I know, mate. Tell me about it. Time just goes in the blink of an eye. So really, with Bitcoin, look, I'm not, you know, getting obsessed with the low time frames here, I have to say. And I'll tell you as for why. I think we've got such beautiful confluence here when we zoom out to, say, the 4 hour, also the hourly as well. And what I really like about the hourly is the fact that we've got this 4 hour gap overlaid by this 1 hour order block. Okay, so I do think that we could see a move down into this, but as long as this holds, like I said, that's when the 15-minute becomes interesting to me, because I'm saying, all right, I don't want to just blindly long this, right? I want to see either some structure on our side. So for example, in this down move here, what did we get? So we had this slope resistance, price came through, nice breakout, left this bullish gap here, price ultimately traded higher. Great. So what did we see here? We got the same thing, right? So we got this slope resistance coming down here. Price had a strong breakout. What did we do? Left this bullish gap. Price dipped into this here. Then we got that expansion. So why not look for something like that again? And I think that this gap here is going to provide that context. All right. I think if we see price really kind of hanging around in here, or if we see a strong rejection, we could be looking at that deeper correction down here to around about, you know, 68.1, 68.2.5, that kind of area. But if we really rip through this, and especially if we set this order block, then I do think that we can move a fair bit higher from here. When we go back to our weekly scale here, you have to forgive the little bit of mess on the chart here. Let me just get rid of this. You know, when we go back to the weekly scale here, this thing is showing a lot of strength, right? We came and took out this high, nice corrective move down. I know I sound like a broken record with this sometimes, but look what we did. Held this bullish gap on a weekly scale perfectly, all right? Absolutely perfectly. Buyers stepped in, big, strong expansion. These ideas, look, it doesn't look like much when you get it up on a weekly chart. It's just a handful of candles, right? But you start thinking every one of these represents a week of price action, then you can really get the context. Now, for me, this is a bullish candle, right? I know it's got it's bearish in color. Mine are black. I know other people have red and a whole host of colors, but it's the long downside wick I'm interested in here, right? And the reaction that we had at this order block. You know, SZ was always massive on this, and you know, I was absolutely blessed to learn a lot from him in my early days, right? Especially when I kind of pivoted into crypto. But he would always say this, you know, the wicks are where price has tried to go. So price tried to do this. Yeah, price really tried to kind of have a strong move low. It opened here on the flat of that candle, pushed all the way down, came back up. Now it's settled here, but look what happened. That's just buyers stepping in aggressively. So for me, this feels really bullish at the moment. Now, we obviously got the high here. As we look over here, we've got a couple more highs, and then we are back at the all-time high. I have to say it's looking very, very strong at the moment. Now, something that we do want to consider, you know, if we're looking across the line here, is that probably, I would say this high here that we set back in March has done a pretty good job so far of capping the market, right? As we move it across there, I'll do it in red so it doesn't look like an order block. We set this high, price came up back below. Then we had this strong close above it. That was a very, very sneaky move there because buyers stepped in quite aggressively, or maybe that's the manipulation before price broke down. But look what happened when we got back beneath this line. Resistance, 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 resistance. Perfect touch there for resistance. So really, if I'm looking at this and saying, okay, I want to see price establish itself above here, which is 69,990, Again, this all depends on the time frame that you're trading, guys, and what your approach is. However, looking at it on the higher time frame, for me, that's pretty much the level that's capping the market here on Bitcoin. So, Max, hello, mate. Welcome to the stream. Great to see you. Love the Che Guevara logo. So, I mean, there's not really much else to say on that here. You know, normally we kind of go really in depth here, but actually, I don't want to overcomplicate these things. It's really, really nice and simple. We're holding a weekly order block. We've had a huge week here for the one that began 14th of October. Now we've got a beautiful pin bar candle here with a very short nose. So a little consolidation here and maybe a rip towards the end of the week, you know, wouldn't be unheard of. However, it does lead me on to something. You know, when we're looking at these moves, we're looking at them in terms of catalysts, right? And actually, talking catalysts, you know, I need to just drop you all a teaser. We have at the Bird Nest, we have our yearly free trading congress coming up again. We get some of the biggest and best names in the industry to come on. We do interviews, we do prize giveaways. You get to meet the whole team. And in fact, this year, the whole team pretty much is going to get together in Poland. So we're going to be hosting this all live for you as we do every year. So do keep an eye out on that. It's a fantastic event, doesn't cost a penny. And we have some really, really cool things going on. I'm super, super excited with that. Going to get to the back end of Binance Blockchain Week, get ourselves home. And then before you know it, it is going to be in sight. So something I do want to share with you guys, though, so bear with me one moment while I do it with my little kind of travel setup that we've got here, is the news, right? So what do I mean by the news? Well, it's the red folder news, okay? So let me just zoom in a little smidge on that for you guys. Right, so this is news for those of you that aren't aware. This is news that affects traditional markets. The red folder is how we kind of label this down to the most important high impact news. And the last couple of weeks have been very benign. There's not been a lot of news. The news that has hit has come very late in the week. So we've seen maybe Wednesday, Thursday before any key news drops. Now we focus on the US markets. And what you can see here is just this absolute carnage of news releases. These things have the ability to move markets aggressively, right? So we're looking at this and we're plugging this into our kind of risk matrix. Okay, what's the appetite in the market for risk at the moment? You know, are the major players looking to invest in risk assets, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, technology stocks, for example? Off the back of that, normally when those conditions are in play, that is good news for cryptocurrency, which in itself is a major or maybe even a beta risk asset. So Tuesday, we can see we've got CB consumer confidence and job openings coming through. Then we go through into Wednesday, we've got non-farm employment change. This thing really moved the dial. They had to kind of revise this down. I mean, this was, you know, a lot higher than they expected last time. Advanced GDP quarter on quarter. This is going to really get into the bones of what's happening in the American economy. Now, then we follow that up on Thursday. Core PCE price index month on month, unemployment cost index quarter on quarter, and unemployment claims. This is something they missed the dial with quite big a few weeks ago and really kind of led to that catalyst in the market. And then Friday doesn't even give us any respite. We've got average hourly earnings month on month. Okay, that's, you know, used as a gauge to, okay, how expensive is it to live in the States versus what's the average hourly wage that people are earning? Is it sustainable? What does it tell you about the state of the economy? Then non-farm employment change. Okay, that's always a big one. Unemployment rate and ISM manufacturing PMI. So look at that week there. Let me just show you the previous week. And you'll notice that there's hardly any news here, right? Again, all the way through until Thursday before we had any US news drop. So we really do need to keep an eye on that. And actually, of that news, it was relatively benign. Unemployment claims was, you know, pretty flat. Actually, they forecast 243 to 227. So that was quite good for the market, allowing us to kind of have that latter stage pump. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip our attention back and take a look at a couple of alts. I want to take a look at Solana. I want to take a look at Ethereum. Okay, so let's get ourselves back on the charts and let's see where we are. Okay, so we're here with Sol. Let's just give ourselves a little bit of breathing room with this. Get them away and get ourselves a nice clean chart. So we have a really key support resistance level here on Solana. Struggling a little bit with the internet over here, but we can see if you go back, this is a really key level, 126.6, resistance, close above, and then price has not closed below it since, all right? And that was December. Now, December 23, by the way, back here. Now, what we're looking here on the weekly scales, we can see we've got this untapped high here. We've come and taken liquidity above this. This was a key area for me looking at this on a weekly because we had, you know, basically relative equal highs here. That was the highest high. That was just below. That was just below. When you see these failure swings, the liquidity that builds up above here is often too much of a temptation for price to refuse. Now, we also had this, and I'm favoring the larger order block here, all right? This large down close candle because it's pretty much level with this one. But again, look, we get that close above. What we're looking for is this kind of area to be retested around here. That's where we want to be buyers. In terms of targets here for Solana, the first one on a weekly scale that I'm looking at is 193.95. Doesn't mean that we're just going to jump on a roller coaster and go straight there, but it's very, very important to understand where those key levels are on the higher time frame. So we move this down to a daily now. What I really wanted to see, or what I still want to see here, is this, all right? So Friday, when we saw that sell-off, we set this order block. Now, this doesn't confirm as an order block until price closes above it. So what would be really nice is see a close above that price, hold this area here, and then we don't want to see price coming back down to this again. Ultimately, you know, if you've got these key levels like we had here, price comes back in, tests this area, doesn't come back down to take that low, sets a low, moves away, sets a higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. You know, I'm not going to batter you with basic kind of market structure, but you can see here that we're holding bullish market structure. Now, we would need to get ourselves down below this low here, which is 160 flat. Amazing how often we see these round numbers, right? You know, these charts really do represent psychology, right? They really do represent how people think about it when they're buyers, they're sellers. So you often see these round numbers because people kind of, you know, almost automatically gravitate towards them when they're setting targets and figures. So on a daily scale, super clean, right? Get ourselves above this. And I think then, you know, we've shaped up really well to head for that 193.95. As I look across to the left, is there anything really stopping price? And when I talk about stopping price, I'm looking at, okay, where are people putting their stop losses here, right? Where are people, you know, arguably going to be looking to take some profit? Because, you know, if you've been long from down here or you've been long here, this is a great place to take profit because, you know, you can almost guarantee there's good liquidity above there. So that's what we want to do in terms of targeting. Now, it would be remiss of me to not add this as well, purely because that is the local and current swing high that we've got here. So price coming up to take this out, one thing we need to be a little bit careful of is we're going to take liquidity above this high in the move that closes almost certainly. Maybe not, maybe we close just below it. If we do, happy days, we look for that lower time frame pullback, and then we look to long it. But ultimately, that's where we look there at the moment. I'm just going to pop on B Pro for a minute, our in-house indicator. We can see what a great job it did here, right? So it got us bullish from here. So we were 19, stepping into the 20th. Ultimately, we caught all this move up. Nice corrective move down. Great opportunity to be a buyer down here as well. That's why the levels are so very important. And ultimately, this is still holding the trend really, really nicely for us. So it's telling us to retain our bullish bias. And then, you know, we don't need to look at much else beyond that, do we? We've got market structure on our side. You know, we're respecting the key levels, and B Pro is telling us to be bullish as well. So happy days. Now, let's move down to the 4 hour and say, okay, what if we want to be a little bit more granular about this? Well, I like this wick low down here. Anytime you see like an abnormal wick or an abnormally long wick, this one, for example, I'm really looking what happens when price kind of, I'm just going to get rid of these for a moment, guys. Always really looking to see, okay, what happens when price runs these kind of lows? Because look, the buying pressure there was pretty intense. We stepped into this bullish gap. Price tried to get below it and just got bought up here. Look at these long downside wicks. This, you can tell this is the market heating up here, ready to move. Ultimately, time for a little bit of broken record again. But then when we got the inversion gap here, closed above it, look at that beautiful retest, price was away. So one thing that I'm thinking here is, you know, Sol looks pretty good for a bit of a retrace here. I think this is probably the earliest stage that we're going to see price run that and maybe get this recovery. That's 173.14. If not, then, you know, let's take our Fibonacci out here and draw this from the low to the high. Our 50% is here. And what do I love about that 50% being there is I just love the fact that it's got this big bullish gap. Now, I'll just do this in green, so it really signifies that it's a bullish gap. Now, we dipped into this just marginally here and saw this really strong reaction. So again, when price gets down to it, or if price gets down to there and rips through that, would be great to just see a move that maybe tags into this a little bit, gets down below 50%, recovers very quickly. That will show us that the impetus is still there from the bulls. Obviously, if we get ourselves down here, we can see again that the golden pocket, that's the 0.618, 0.66 level here, also overlays itself beautifully with this bullish gap here. Now, again, that was just tickled into here before price really moved away. So they're two key areas that I'm looking at there. Again, if we get them, I really do think we could see a strong reaction here, especially if we start to align ourselves with the news. If we get those news catalysts come in, then that can really make things rip. So it almost feels like, the market and price and that is kind of gearing itself down a little bit lower, encourage those buyers in, trick those other players into getting offside, generate that liquidity, and then really have a good rip. Now, if I was looking at this on the hourly, then I'd be saying, okay, well, we've got this bearish gap above us, untested. So when price takes out this low, quite often when you take a low or a higher, price then kind of retreats to a gap. That's when you really can tell if the buyers or the sellers, whichever side of the market you're trading, are really stepping in there. So we can see the move down lower now. Really want to see the reaction that we get down here. We have this area here as well that's been key, this down move here, this consolidation, and we came above and we set that order block there. Yeah, see this down move here, we got another little one in here, but ultimately when price closed above that, we got a smidge of a close there, beautiful retest, and then price really ran away. So interested to see what we do around about here. That's 172.58, but I think we might even get it, very shortly with price running this low. And what do I want to look for if price is going to run this low? Let me show you. So this red line here, imagine this is the low we're looking to get swept. Well, what I want to see is I want to see price kind of have a move below it, but then a very aggressive recovery, right? And then in that case, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking for this structure shift here. So lower low, lower high, sharp move down, strong recovery. Like I say, strong close, big body candles that are coming through that. Then what we can do is we can look for inefficiencies that are in here, say bullish gaps, for example. We can also look across here as well and say, okay, have we got any bearish gaps here that fail? So then we get that inversion setup that we're talking about. Price moves away, then we can look to trade that here. You can even trade, the breaker, which would be the up close candle that led to the sweeper liquidity, wait for price to close back above that, and then look to get your buyers in and around the top line of the breaker. So that's what I'd be looking for. It doesn't matter what the time frame is, whatever I'm looking to execute on, that is the key move that I'm looking for. I want to see people shifted offside. I want to see that reversed. I want to see mitigation take place. That's typically then when you get those larger moves. So let me just have another quick look on here as well. Mohammed, my friend, welcome. Trumpy on Solana from Seize the Moment. Yeah, sure. Do you know what? We've got a couple of minutes left in the show. Let me grab those charts up for you guys, and we'll close out by taking a look at that. We'll take a very quick look at ETH first, and then I will take a look at those before we close out the show. So bear with me one moment. Perfect. And we'll jump across onto the ETH chart. Right, let's go to our weekly, see where we are here. Again, beautiful kind of support resistance level here. Look, I won't bother going, but support, close below, retest, resistance, closes above, retest, and away. What happened when we revisit these areas? We get the retest here and we get the retest here. Now, these are not just magical lines that exist for no reason, right? All you're doing is you want to look and mark out the areas where you see clear resistance, clear support, and look for aggressive, strong moves away from those areas, right? As trader Dante would say, who I very fortunate to learn from in my early days as well, you want to see violence, right? That's how he would always put it. And this is a pretty violent move up. Again, buyers stepped in here, so we can see what we've got. Let's just get this tucked away so we can start with a nice clean chart. Perfect. So what are we facing at the moment? Well, quite simply, price did come above and close above this down close candle here, right, in the order block. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. This candle here is within the range of these two larger candles. Now, when that happens, I really like to see the larger candle set the order block, right? Because technically, this being within the range of this one, unless it's a move that's just simply too big, I wouldn't look for price to close above this, for example, because there's a huge move down. However, what I would look for is for the fact that that's a bearish order block. We can see the rejection here. We can see another rejection here that's led to this down move. Look for price to close above that, inverting it, in which case we turn that purple, and we use this as a base of support for price to move higher. However, since price has kind of come up, we want to focus on this as well because it's definitely significant. Now, price came up, had that strong close. Now, remember what I said to you when we were looking at Bitcoin, right? What we need to be careful of here is we've run this higher. These are higher time frames, right? The weekly, you're going to have a lot of liquidity resting above here. So when price had this strong close, then saw this big retreat last week. All right. Now there's other catalysts that play into that, but it's still something we always want to consider. So where are we at the moment? Well, quite simply, I'm just kind of not getting enough off the weekly time frame here. We've got a beautiful engulfing candle here. Then we've had this big down close candle here, but it is within the range of this one, not enough to set an inside bar because it did take liquidity just from that prior week's high. So I'm going to use the daily here, right? I'm going to get rid of that a moment, just keep this nice and clean. So what do I want to see? Well, something that was a little bit of a concern here was the close below this. So that's where we get the inversion gap. Now, again, the only issue with this in the close below, we took the immediate resting liquidity below that low. So again, it's not overly clear. However, I believe, yeah, we do. We have a slither of a gap over here. That's a bullish gap. And price ultimately respected that. It respected that, and it also respected the order block here as well. And that's not insignificant because, just label that up quickly. We can see here, this was the daily order block. When we closed above, price tagged this, and then we had this huge move up, ultimately attacking liquidity above that swing high. We've now revisited again. Candle hasn't even managed to close below this. It's just dipped down, and we're seeing that recovery. So here actually looks like a really good spot for this to make a move. Now, a couple of areas that I'm interested in is this high, which is at 2,565. Then we've got this gap above it. So actually, I think we're going to do a lot of our business here on the 4 hour. And what I would say with this one is quite simply, we're starting to make territory down into this. We've set this order block here on the H4. Price closed above. Nice little retest. Now, notice the difference here, right? And this is what I've said on Bitcoin. Just said it then a moment ago. We covered it on Sol as well. Price came up and it closed above setting this order block. It did not take that high. All right, it might look like it did, certainly on this time frame, but it did leave this failure swing, right? So then when you see price get retreats down to it, comes back down, dips down a little bit, retests this order block, and then there's this beautiful expansion higher. That's why, and I think it says it, or used to say it on my profile anyway, which is trading level to level, right? And understanding where these key liquidity pools are so that you can mitigate your risk. So here really, there's not much I can gather from this. I can take a look at the order block here and say, okay, from the high to the low, if we look at this and say, where's our 50%, we can see that that's comfortably being respected here. Then we start closing back below that, then, we have some very, very tempting liquidity that's stacking up below these untapped lows here, all right? I'm not saying we're coming all the way down to here. However, like we said, if this area has offered support before, a flush taking out these lows would get people super bearish and also set the stage for a really good potential recovery. So that's what I'll be watching for there. Now, I did promise these two nice people in the chat. Who was it? Mohammed and Seize the Moment, I think. So we'll take a quick look at TIA. Michael Maguire, hello, mate. And Nit, our wonderful Nit par. And then Trumpy on Solana. Okie doke, mate. Let's take a look at TIA first of all. Well, I mean, one thing to say about this is you can see that there's a big recovery that this can make here. Ultimately, when you're bearish like this, you want to see the down close candles defend the up close candles, defending price. We can see here as well. And then there's a shift. We create these ones here, and then for the first time, we close above this order block candle here, making it a bullish order block. Now, we've actually done something similar here again, in closing above this one. However, really do not like the way that this was violated. Okay, didn't take the swing high, set the order block, ultimately retraced down below the 50% of this now, showing weakness. So it's just kind of giving me an indication that it needs to take some liquidity a little bit lower down. So we're going to look for that. I think 4.510 is a good level here to look for a sweep and then a recovery. Let's take a look at our daily and see if it's going to play ball with us here. So we can see here on the daily, we've got this bearish order block that was set. That hasn't been retested. Label that up right to just fix in with my OCD. Up close candle, price sold off aggressively. Look, just dipped marginally into this bearish gap here, sold off. Now, we have taken liquidity here, local liquidity. And as we look across here, we've got another low, but I'm really interested in this because you always want to put your, not your bias, but your focus a lot more on the higher time frames, okay? What I do really like about this having a resurgence, though, is the fact that we've got all these untapped highs up here, yeah? So there, and ultimately up. Just great liquidity pools being left there. So when we do get the recovery on this, I think we could see it become really strong. So this has been respected. Now we could look to retest this. Now we've taken this low and then move down lower. I'd be really, really interested in, looking for those reactions for long positions down at 4.510. Take a look at the 4 hour here as well. And what's the 4 hour telling us? Well, actually, excuse me, the 4 hour gives us an indication that if we get ourselves above here, now remember, this doesn't confirm until we close above it. But if we close this candle out, and it's, 4 hours from now pretty much, and leave this gap, if we then violate that and close above here, I'd be very, very confident that we're going to make a move on these highs. All right, it would be overlaid strength there. My expectation would be more aligned with the fact that if we do close that gap there, if we leave that gap there, when this candle closes in 4 hours, that we get something more like this. Yeah, and then this is what gives us the opportunity to kind of get back on board. So that's what I'm watching for there on TIA, really. If I was going to be super aggressive with this, you just got a lot of gaps in this move down. There's a gap there. There's a larger gap there. So I think I would actually on this one, I would just stick to my guns and I'd stay with the 4 hour here and say, okay, let's get back above this, set the 4 hour order block. And then I really do think that this thing could rip. So what was the last one? So Trumpy on Solana. That was it. So let's close off with that. We don't really cover many little coins like that, do we? So Trumpy with USDT. Let's have a look. Hope you all know how terrible I am at this, by the way. So someone will be in the chat in a minute, I'm sure, guiding me and telling me that I'm on the wrong one. I've got it with eGold here, Elrond. Let's just take a look at this one quickly, or maybe not. Trumpy, USDC. What have we got here? Nothing on this one here. Guys, if you are still in the chat, let's have a look. What have we got? Hey, Just a Dad, my tea drinking brother. How are you doing? Return from YouTube prison. Fantastic. Welcome back to the world. Okay, so if I'm just being a melt here, guys, please do let me know. I can't seem to find this Trumpy coin here, and this has already been delisted, or maybe it was Trump rather than Trumpy, or maybe it just hasn't got a, maybe it's not here on TradingView. But do let me know if you've got a ticker, guys. I'll take a look at that. And because we've got a very, very quick bit of time at the end, let's take a quick look at TAO for GOK as well while we're on here, shall we? Give a little while to see if I've got a ticker for that one. So TAO. So again, this becomes a bit more apparent on the daily here, but support resistance level, prices just kind of snuck down below that on a weekly scale. There is this huge draw of this gap, this bullish gap that's lower, very, very close. In fact, I wonder, we didn't quite dip into that, did we? We came very, very close, but we haven't quite taken that out. Apart from that, the weekly doesn't tell me too much here because we failed to take any liquidity here. This looks like a pretty healthy corrected move for me. If we take the low to the high of the move and we put our fibs back on, we can see that we've got the 50% here aligning with this bullish gap, as well as a golden pocket that's a bit lower. I'm not saying we are going that low, but it's definitely something to consider. I think, we came so close to going into that gap. I think what happened is price actually got bought up pretty aggressively here when we took out this low. All right, so we've seen that good resurgence here. Again, I'd want to see price back above this. This is our daily order block here. This is the earliest stage on this kind of frame that I'd be looking to make a move here. I think, look, we close back above that. We want to see this area hold, and then we start to move up. Ultimately, we did the opposite with this, which is where we set the bearish order block, and look what happened. Bearish order block set, price came down. We've just kind of tickled that now, and we've seen a little bit of a reaction here, but price is kind of getting bought up. So once again, I think the safer plays are to wait for price to get above here, which is this large down close candle. We'll take a look at it on the 4 hour, see if we can see any reason. And actually what we can see here is just from a bear's perspective, what a great job this bearish gap is doing. Rejection, rejection, another rejection here. I think if we want to go early stage aggressive at this, we close above this, and then we look for that high time frame confirmation with a close above there. But I would definitely be looking to keep those stops quite tight there because we could flush lower. The hourly is telling us a little bit more of a bullish resurgence here because we can see that the hourly gap has held. Now, remember, the lower we go down the time frames, these things can get pretty comfortably trashed. So we need to make sure that we're allowing for that higher time frame all the time as well. However, if we think we've got to draw higher, then this gives us the opportunity to potentially get involved a little bit lower down. Depends what your risk tolerance is, right? So what have we done here? Swept a low, reacted at a bullish gap. If we get above this one here, inverting that, then yeah, I'm really happy to consider taking some long positions in here. I know where I'm wrong because I'm wrong below this. I know I've got high time frame confirmation coming up with the 4 hour being above that. And again, if we really did rip and we set that hourly order block as well in here, then I think this provides a really good platform here. I mean, look at this consolidation through here. It's a bit messy, but you see the consolidation. That was the move to the offside. That got people super bearish. All that liquidity got gobbled up and price ran really hot. So let's just take a look at that. Maga is the best representation of the Trump coin. Gok, you're very welcome, my friend. Okay, yeah, let's finish up, take a quick look at Maga then, mate. Thank you very much. Here we go. Let's have a look over at Mexi, shall we? What have we got here? Now, we want to look at this on the higher time frame, not too high, but okay, yeah, this is very interesting, actually. So on a weekly scale, what have we done? We've come back down into here. We've retested this untested order block. Price got a beautiful reaction, moves higher. No real inefficiencies in this down move. And again, this is the next down close candle that we would want to see price close above on a daily scale. So, by the end of the day, if we establish ourselves above this, then I really could see us making a move on these highs, of which there's so many zeros in this, is about a million zeros, 16590. All right. Let's take a look at the 4 hour. Okay, so 4 hour doing its job quite nicely. We had that nice expansion higher. What did we do? Nice expansion, left this breakaway gap, set the order block on the close here, meaning that we want to be buyers in and around here as long as we get our triggers. Now price has kind of moved up, and I think we've now set this because this is outside of that range. Again, we can see what we want to see. We want to see these down close candles supporting price on the way up. When you start to see them violated, that's when you can move lower. Now there's this gap over here, and it's kind of adorned by a little volume imbalance above it as well. And I think this is what's drawing price higher. So yeah, it really isn't the worst position here to be kind of looking for some intraday longs, in my opinion. That's not financial advice, by the way. You can do whatever you would like. And again, thanks to Geo's beautiful indicator here, we can see that we have these lovely equal highs resting here as well. That is such a magnet for price. Obviously, a lot of inefficiencies in that in here as well because it's a little bit of liquid, but ultimately it's holding these key levels, and it does look like it could move higher. This will obviously be one of those things that's going to have a pretty strong news narrative behind it as well. Cheers, mate. Yeah, she is doing good. My four-legged friend, my little baby, my little husky Bubba, bless her. Obviously not with me in Dubai, with some family looking after her, and getting wildly spoiled, no doubt, as she should be. So I'm going to finish up here and just take a look at ACH for Just a Dad, and then we're going to call it a day. Okay, and actually I might get away with doing this in like 30 minutes, 45 minutes anyway. Let's take a look at this. What have we got going on with this then? I mean, you'll see this a lot with these moves, right? Look, big move down, everyone says it's over, and then look at the move up there. I mean, look at what this did from the lows that it set there up to the highs, 309%. You got another one of those moves coming in here as well, when we really do kind of kick the ball run back off in style, in my opinion. That bearish gap is what's capping the market at the moment. We've left these equal highs resting up here, relative equal highs. Anyway, they don't have to be perfect. But that high, very, very close, providing this beautiful draw on liquidity. And what we can see here actually is that this inversion that we set has been defending price wonderfully. Support all the way through here. Price closed above it here, invalidating that bearish gap, turned it bullish. Support, support, support again. Now, if we wanted to be particularly conservative here, then we would want to see price close above this down close candle, setting the weekly order block. Then I think we're really looking at some go time here. Now, moving this onto the daily, this gets even better here. I'm just going to get rid of this for a minute, guys, because look, key thing for me here is this gap has been rebalanced all the way up to here. So I'm not really worried about what price does until it gets up to here. I want to be aware of it, especially on its relevant time frame. But for me, I'm happy to trade this up to these highs. Now, this is, shaping up really, really well here. So we've got this. We can see the higher time frame support that's in place. We've got this, which is currently a bearish gap. We're seeing an initial rejection here. That's fine. We've also drawn up into this order block as well, right, that have remained untested here. So drawn up into the daily order block, seeing that initial rejection. Now I'm not so worried about that now, because what I'm saying is if that bearish order block is going to do its job, then price should only really go down from here. If price closes above this, which is what I want to see, inverting it, all of a sudden look how we're stacking support here. Yeah, so we get this close above, just do it in green to show it's bullish. Then we want to see price hold this area, and then I think, we can run pretty hot again from here. So this is the key thing for me at the moment on a daily scale, is looking at this gap. Do we hold it? As long as we hold it, the chances are we're moving down for this low, which is 0.016971. Close above this and hold this area, then I think we can really rip higher. We have rebalanced this gap now, by the way. So there's a big difference between rebalancing and inverting. This gap here needs to be closed above to be inverted. That means it's failed to do its job to reject price. Therefore, we look for it to flip to support. But rebalancing, it means that the inefficiency that was left in the price delivery here has now been rebalanced, meaning that it holds less sway if we revisit this area. If we do break down expecting shorts, I would then focus on the high that was left after it. But that's super clean there. And the 4 hour is just a larger representation of the same gap, right? Except with this one, we can see we just had that little sneaky close above. That is a pretty strong reaction there. But I tell you what that could be is the fact that we've swept this high here. That high also resides within a bearish gap, right? So it's a gap high or an intermediate term high for anybody that studied any ICT. So we're kind of, at the moment looking like we're kind of stuck between these two. So actually with this one, I really would kind of put the emphasis on the daily here. And I just want to see that daily close above this bearish gap here, and then I think we really make a run on the highs. All right, guys, look, it's been absolutely awesome being back with you all. ZX Robin, Jao Fernandez, apologies we missed KAS. I'm going to try and get live with you again on Wednesday to do our alt request show. Unfortunately, we are, do you know what, sod it, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to be on that show, because we're going to be at Binance Blockchain Week. So for you, Jao, let's take a very quick look and we'll finish up on KAS, all right? But that is going to be our last one. Where are we? Here we go. Let's take a little peek. Okay, so we obviously took a look at this recently. We did come down. We took out that low, very, very weak reaction there. So that's nothing to really get too excited about. We have taken, no, we haven't taken this. These equal lows here are one hell of a target. Wow. Yeah, let me just zoom in a little bit here. Let's see if we did run that. So the low there was 10,100, 10,100. These are exactly equal. So that one was obviously taken out, but now these leave a really, really tempting target. It doesn't have to be taken straight away, but at some point, they are going to be too much of a temptation for price to refuse. Now, on the daily super clean. Again, bearish gap doing its job. As long as that holds, I think we come down for those equal lows, close above this, and I think then we can really rip, because look how balanced that price action is all the way up to here. I think we can see a really strong expansion into those levels. Have a quick look at the 4 hour as well. 4 hours started to see a bit of a resurgence here. So you see what happened. We got the down close candles here. Set the 4 hour order block. Nice close above it here. This slither of a candle. Let me zoom in for you. See the pin bar with a kind of medium nose here, closed above. Beautiful retest, secondary retest, and boom, price was away. Now, again, a little broken record time for you, but I think repetition can be key sometimes. Is we saw this inversion. Notice how price failed to close back above it. Should have been a bullish gap, close below it, retest, price sells off. Now, we've taken liquidity below this swing low. So what's really important to see here is we want to see price back above this order block. on the 4 hour. It can come a little bit deeper. I've got no problem with that. Normally around about the 50%. We want to see price get back above this. If this 4 hour closes here and we leave a bearish gap in situ, what we want to see is like we did with this one, but the reverse. We want to see price close above this, leaving this as an inversion gap and leaving us that as the kind of platform for us to build upon. Even better if we get that H4 order block set there as well, because then we've got a really good base. We know where we're wrong below here, and we know that we've got a lot of clear sky above us and a lot of draws on liquidity. All right, everyone, I hope that was decent. I feel a little bit jet lagged, I'm not going to lie. A couple of days traveling and was all good, but I hope that was decent for you guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pop on Wednesday or not, but I'm going to try and do something from Binance Blockchain Week with you as well. Our very own Crypto Bird, I think, is hosting the innovation stage, I believe, as well, which is just going to be awesome. So if you get a chance to tune in, if you get a chance to pop along, please do. Also, as well, just like to say a real special mention to some of our sponsors. Who, you know, without this wouldn't be possible. Our members have just been absolutely crushing it. I really want to give a huge shout out to our trading team over there. You know, biggest highlight of my career, or two of them, was, you know, obviously working with this great team that we've got here at the Bird Nest, especially Crypto Bird, but the team that we have, you know, the trading team, who are just some of the most exceptional human beings and traders I've ever come across. You can find links in the description to how to join us. There's different ways. We've slashed the prices down. We just want to get everybody involved. We want to get you educated. We want to be you guys making money off of our calls. You know, I think 200-300% last week. In fact, last month, I'm not sure if we've got it on here now, but I think if you'd had a 10K account, you would have earned that 10K back again with no leverage. You would have done the same, obviously, on a 1K account. You get all of the access to that. And a big shout out to our partners over at Bitget, who've renewed their sponsorship with La Liga, which is absolutely huge. I'm sure you've all seen the television adverts with Messi. And now they're involved as well. Some of you might not have known as actual key sponsors for La Liga itself. So please do come along and help them support that. You can just go along to the exchange, sign up, deposit $100, and they'll give you 20. You can withdraw all of it. Doesn't matter. But what I would really recommend is staying around and trading on the exchange. A really, really bright, innovative group of people, always looking to push the exchange forward, always looking to keep the fees low, which ultimately makes a huge difference to your bottom line in the end. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to leave that, knock that on the head. I'm going to go grab myself some food quickly. It's just coming up to 8:30 here in Dubai. Get myself an early night, I think, and get ready for a really, really big week ahead. Everybody, yeah, you can find the WAP link is in the description, guys, as well. I popped it up on the screen. Please do come along. Thank you, Michael. I'm sure it'll be an absolute blast. You know, always good groups of people here. And if you guys ever in attendance of any of these that I'm at, just DM me or ping me or comment in one of my Twitter posts, BC_Richfield. We always make a lot of time to meet up with you guys, fans, fellow traders, everybody that's in there. Absolute legends. All right, so look, there's just another almost 3,000 people live again today, even though we completely changed the time of it. It is a real blessing to be here with you all. Thank you all so much for your time, and too many of you to thank in the chats, but you all know who you are. Huge thanks, lots of love to all of you. Stay safe, trade smart, keep an eye on that news. There's going to be a lot of volatility injected into the markets this week, in my opinion, with those red folder news events. So keep an eye